there is one other part. Like, obviously, we've covered all the big teams, but I will bring this up. One area that I can tell you right now, this is an example of where Dom actually tries to be fair, almost to a fault, Yamato. Like, when he knows he has bias against someone, or that he dislikes someone, or they've done something like silly and he's wrecked them in the past, if he ever sees that person do something good, he will almost go out of his way to be like, but they did do good there, like, fair play, like, that was legit. Like, you saw, what's hilarious is he tried his absolute best to be like, you know, the public defender who gets brought in to defend the obvious murderer, but he's like, you know, maybe he didn't do it. Like, what about this case, Your Honor? He tried that with Adam after that game 1 in Rogue. Like, look, Adam's still good. Mate, I like the way he didn't even get through the whole series. Like, by the end of the series, he had to actually scratch that. Because, bro, what do you think about this? Like, at this point in time, no one believes in Rogue, mate. How could you? How could you?
There's just... There's nothing there. There's no substance. There's no substance at all.
There's nothing to grasp onto, mate. You know, it's just slipping away when you grab.
I don't know, bro. I don't know how they change so many things, but still manage to look the same. They just look the same. Like, ever since it was the roster, like post Odoamne era, like they've just looked so just pacified and just nothing there in terms of how they want to progress. And then finally you see, oh, Larson, he's ahead here on the LeBlanc. Is he finally going to get it done? You know, is he going to actually, you know, do something that, you know, that we maybe saw in 2020, maybe in 2022 even? But no.
Which, by the way, was one of his pocket picks, as you know. That was one of actually his pocket picks, even though it's not the traditional major, which he used to be pretty good on that, though. He was kind of good at getting in and out. I agree. You expected this is going to be a carry game, and then, nope, apparently not. He's already been paid. Sorry, he just checked his bank account. The money's already there. Don't worry about that. Actually, don't mind that.
I don't know, but they were so funny. The Rogue posted, like, we are celebrating 6 years with Larson. I was like, bro, it's
not
like,
the time.
Bro, it's like celebrating like some kind of a weird prison sentence. Like, I don't know, bro. It's crazy, bro.
It's why, in a weird way, that's the only thing that makes that story like okay. It's like he's being giga paid. So even though I felt bad for him the last few years, where it's like they're wasting his talent, they're both wasting each other's resources at this point in time. Like it's just whack for everyone, innit? It just fucking sucks. And also, actually, there's one thing we can. I just realised, Malto, that's one thing I actually should already. I was coincidentally brought up the Rogue things. I thought the Adam angle was interesting. I just realised now we can actually do the pivot though, which is. It was rumoured in the past that Rogue was the team that was going to try and sell to the Falcons, the Saudi org that has all the money. And basically, I'd heard ever since last year that this org has been positioning the whole time to try and like basically sell the spot. Now, I will say it's worth understanding when you sell the spot, just like with Karmine Corp, that doesn't mean you sell the players. It doesn't mean like the Astralis players get to go and be in Karmine Corp. Sometimes you're not buying those contracts. You're not buying it lock, stock, and barrel, as we say, right? In this particular case, the rumour now is that Na'Vi, Nartas Vincer, the very famous Ukrainian organization, obviously most famous for Counter-Strike and Dota, where they've been world championship winners, etc. And they've had some of the all-time greats like Simple and Dendy and the 1.6 players, Marklov, Edward, etc. The rumor is they're going to come into League of Legends. Now, I will say there's two things here, Yamato. One, if you're a true boomer, none of the people in this chat are, Na'Vi actually was in League of Legends, but only in like 2011 or whatever the fuck. If you go back a million years with like Citizen fucking Wayne or whatever his name is, well, that guy, like they were around then. Amazing used to play for them. If you don't know as a jungler, they had a few players back then that were known. That was in the era though of the open circuit and where you could go like OGN and all that shit. Aside from that, as I said, it's Dota's been their game. That's been the game they've been in on for years and years and years. They've had a whole dynasty and some of the greatest players ever, right? The idea they will come... If this rumour indeed ends up happening, look, Rogue's the obvious one that should sell. They obviously don't seem like they're running the org very well. The others come 10 players a bunch of times. By the way, that would even be a clever angle. When we say, like, you can be kicked out the league, rather than be kicked out, it's better to just be obviously just sell the org than you just fucking get a new team in. What do you think about this rumour? Obviously, we're just going to treat this a rumour. What would you think if Na'Vi came into League of Legends? Is that a good move for you?
Like on my end, I don't know if it's the same ownership, but back when I was in, like we had the team Solo Mebdi, me, Jensen, Doc, and Jax, we basically, it was planned that if we qualified to the LCS back then, that we would become Na'Vi. Like
Right.
we had very very extensive conversations with Zero Gravity at the time, and we were supposed to become Navi, because we needed funding to go to IM Brazil. So we needed someone to hook us up. Crazy to think that we would
I
have
mean,
just given
it
up.
might have been Prime. That was when they were like killing it in CS and Dota. Like, it must have been massive to get that offer back then, mate. I bet that we were hyped as fuck,
Like
right?
we were giga hyped, It's like in that era, the cool
Yeah.
orgs were like
They were the
Navi,
best.
Fnatic, like SK, these
Yeah.
were the badass fucking orgs. And obviously we didn't understand that like us giving up the slot or whatever would be worth any money. We just wanted to
Right.
have an org
Sure.
and be taken care of. Like we didn't fucking know the golden goose that we were sitting on. But obviously we got fucking disqualified because 3 players got banned before at the airport before we got to the event. In terms of where Navi is now, of course, I've heard of their accolades in CS and Dota. In my mind, I don't know how they would leverage their advantage, because I imagine in terms of league in the CIS region, League of Legends is just not that big of a game, right? It's like Dota and CS is very, very prioritized. So I wonder what their advantage would be, right? Their advantage would be that they're just a legacy org that seems to have a lot of success. But in terms of that fan base and that viewership, I would be very, very interested to see how they would translate. But I'm at the point in time where I would take anything over Rogue, and I think that anything being Navi would be good in my mind. But I imagine, from my side, before you even brought up Navi, I wanted to ask you, in terms of Navi
man.
and what you think about them as an org, because I imagine your opinion, because in terms of what they accomplished in CS and so forth, you have a better overview of Navi and what they could bring to the table.
I mean, the interesting thing is a lot of the teams in that region, including like Russia, etc., which obviously used to previously, prior to the conflict, was actually a shared region. They often had a lot of teams like Ukrainian and Russian players in, including, by the way, Navi in CS and in Dota in different time periods. Actually, it was like a shared cultural heritage. In that region, a lot of people might not know that in the modern day, there's actually quite a lot of money. I mean, a lot of it comes from like gambling things in CS and Dota, etc. But I can tell you, like, for example, in Counter-Strike, that one of the top teams now, winners of the last major, Team Spirit, one of their like other star players is a player called Shiro that they bought from Cloud9, and they bought him for like over $1 million. Like, there's some big buyouts in these regions that are like very legit. Like, they have millions to spend basically. So that aspect is exciting. Like, the idea, anyone who comes into LEC, it's why, by the way, I don't like the Saudi angle, but I like the Falcons having loads of money. Like, I like the idea that we have teams come in, because one of the cool things, if you ever do follow sports like football, is you want the people to have the $1 million owners, so that like it's not just like I have to find like the next great player in like the fucking academy somewhere. That's really hard to do. There's very rare people that actually have even the skill set to find the player and then bring him into your team and make him good. What you want is you want your teams and the top teams to be making big off-season moves that give them a chance to win. So if we have another org, like Rogue wasn't it. Rogue has never been that team. As far as I know, the only person that's ever got giga paid is Larson right now. And that was basically the only reason, as far as I can tell, he stayed and re-upped, etc. If instead you get rid of Rogue, who I do think has, after that one glorious period of 4 to 5 years, they've been really mismanaged and they haven't been good. And at this point in time, they don't look like they're even going to turn it around. You look at the rosters they make, they're so lackluster on paper. You just go, this shouldn't even work, even in a fantasy world. The idea a new org comes in, presumably to spend money as well, buy big name players, that's exciting. I like the idea that someone comes in who could build another contender, and then we could actually, like in an ideal world, LEC could actually be good enough. The whole top half of the table could contend for the title. You could have G2, Fnatic, Carmine Corp, Koi, Na'Vi, like, bro, that's when it'll get spicy. That, by the way, and then who knows? The BDS there'll be one other team, Vitality, one other team will get it together, and suddenly you'll have a really competitive league. By the way, that'll actually take care of that whole scheduling problem I had before. If every week there are just good games, nothing to worry about then. So I would be in favor of it. I think it would be good. And also, I think a lot of the downsides that you get in games like Counter-Strike and Dota just wouldn't actually appear in League of Legends, because another detail is, remember, because League of Legends is about living in Germany and having the visa, you actually wouldn't probably have Russian and Ukrainian players in this team. It wouldn't be about nationality. It'd just be another mixed European roster. So one of the only issues I've ever heard about in their region still is sometimes if you're like a smaller name player, you don't get as much salaries in the West. Like, you might actually be on like 5 or 10K as opposed to someone's on 30K in like another European Counter-Strike team. That probably wouldn't be a factor here. Like, I actually imagine they'll just make another team where like one person's Spanish and one's German and one's French, like all the LEC teams. So I actually think, to me, it's almost only an upside. side, and I'll throw this in there as well, even though, yes, the SKs of the world have sort of taken their heritage in League and thrown it in the bin, I do think having like, I mean, Na'Vi actually started in 2010, so to me, they're not an old school org, but in the modern context, they are. They actually are like a legacy org at this point in time. Like, anytime you can get an org like that, you want to play on the fact that, like, they do have all these all-time great players and historic names, and that you're not, the problem you have, like, Karmine Corp's issue right now is they have loads of fans today, and they just won a split, but just like when Rogue won, it doesn't feel the same as when G2 and Fnatic win, because they're adding, like, another fucking name and an era to, like, an already an incredibly long story that is kind of like a tapestry of what League of Legends esports is. So I want all the great orgs to be in the game. It's actually why one of the big bombers to me about actually LCS is how many of the big esports orgs aren't in that league anymore, and the fact that you'd even have these giant names. And I even think of the people who never came into LCS, mate. I always think that's another failure people don't even talk about. Like, LCS never had FaZe Clan. One of the biggest orgs in all of esports, like massive. They had Optic, but it was kind of scoffed. You know what I mean? It wasn't the real Optic with the big fan base. They had Envy, but again, it was kind of scoffed. Like, you never got like both the team and the success that like goes hand in hand with that. If you don't know, guys, you know the games like Call of Duty. These are the Real Madrids and the Barcelonas. These are the Manchester United and Liverpools. Like, you want all these people involved in your esport, because you can build like Karmine Corp. You can build a new fan base, but it's not the same as having really been around 10, 15, 20 years and having people with it. The cool thing is, like, the obvious thing I think of immediately is the day someone like Na'Vi announces they're into League of Legends, if you were a fan who was the crossover fan between Counter-Strike and League, you're buying that jersey instantly. Of course, you were a Na'Vi fan anyway. Like, there's a way into the league and an interest that gets sparked immediately that you didn't have before. Whereas, like, of all the teams to replace, is anyone a Rogue fan? No one's a Rogue fan. Come on, bro. Has anyone ever even seen a Rogue fan? The joke is they picked the right logo. All their fans are just fucking hiding in the shadows, like getting the hood on, like keeping your head down, you know, fucking exactly.
Bro, I'm with you. It's like Na'Vi would at least have pride, you know? It's like if they are 10th place for some reason, they're not gonna
exactly.
They're gonna have pride. And maybe like what you said made me dream. You know, maybe they are the ones that can bust out the checkbook and bring back some of our, you know, European greats that are over, you know, in FlyQuest. You know, maybe Nukta comes back, maybe Mythic comes back with Whippo and Inspired, and they build a roster together. You know, this we need someone to write the checks for these guys. You know, we need to bring them back here home.
And by the way, that is also the sort of move I would hope they would do. It's like, instead of thinking of like, we know esports, so we'll make it. No, just go and hire some. By the way, people like Mythy would be awesome. Go hire people like that, build a project out. And yeah, as you say, then if you actually have like the budget for it, maybe you can get Inspired to come home. Maybe he doesn't have to play his whole career in LTA. Maybe he actually comes back and it's him going head to head with fucking Razork every week. That'd be unbelievable. Who wouldn't want to watch that? That would be the shit. I'm in on that, mate. Yeah.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.